Hello, everybody. Welcome back to our podcast series on the category of ancient wisdom demystified. Today's topic are pyramids around the world, construction, and purpose. So, Tata,
Yes, Steve.
there's so many pyramids around the world. Like, can you name a few of them?
Yeah, sure. You have, there are more than 1,000 pyramids around the world, but we will talk today only about the ancient pyramids. I will be selecting only about five pyramids, which are very ancient, and we will talk about it. The first one will be the Giza in Egypt, which was constructed in the 20th century before Christ. The next one is the pyramids of Kush, which is in Sudan. Now, Sudan was a territory of Egypt. Actually, the Egyptian empire had conquered Kush, and so they started building for the same
Hmm.
purpose, as some as for the purpose of worship, some for the purpose of burial of the king and the queen, and so these were built around 13th century BCE.
Okay.
Then, then we have a great pyramid which is hidden by complete greenery in China. This is called
Hmm.
the Qin Shi Huang pyramid. And it's where you find the terracotta warriors. You must have seen in a number of pictures and in movies also. So these are thousands of terracotta warriors who are arrayed inside the pyramid with chariots. So this is something very unique. And this was in the 3rd century before Christ.
Hmm.
The Prasad Tomb pyramid in the district of Kokher region in Cambodia is also very ancient. And this is probably 9th century CE, and it was built as a temple to Shiva by King Jayavarman, because the Hindu culture had gone to Cambodia and that region, and he built this as a temple to Shiva. Then we
Hmm.
have the Mesoamerican pyramids in Mexico and Peru. There were three
Yeah.
civilizations which are very critical to examine. One is the Mayan civilization, the most ancient in that region, which was about 900 CE. Then we have the Aztec around 1300 CE. And finally, we have the Incas in Peru.
Hmm.
This is where you have the Machu Picchu and other, famous architectural wonders. And
Yeah.
this was around 1400 CE. There are more
Nice.
pyramids in Americas than in the rest of the world. So this is something which is quite surprising. We have found that we have a lot of pyramids. Yeah.
Hmm. Nice. So, Tata, I've heard of pyramids being underwater. So, how did they end up building pyramids underwater?
See, most of the pyramids and their construction was much before the Great Flood, which happened
Hmm.
around 12,000 years before today. And we discussed this in the last video about the Great Flood, of why it was caused by a meteor strike. And we have proof of this meteor strike in the glacier of Greenland called the Havata Glacier. Also, we have found another big crater in Chile. So, this was a widespread meteor strike around the world, which created a big flood because we were coming to the end of the ice age. This we saw in the couple of videos back. So, that created
Yeah.
a rise in sea level. So, at one point of time, the landmass between Egypt, India, Myanmar, Malaysia, then we have the Indonesian islands, and also the Papua New Guinea and Australia,
Mhm.
they were all connected by one landmass. There was no water in between. So people could
Hmm.
migrate. This is how migration took place in the ancient times. So also the civilization, people who brought these ancient technologies, they could move around here and they could influence. Anyhow, this is why
Nice.
today we find some of the very ancient pyramids underwater today.
Nice. So, Tata, are these pyramids like connected to each other somehow?
Yeah, see, there are three basic references for the connection between the various pyramids and the ancient sites, temples also. One is the ley lines. These ley lines are energy lines which are crisscrossing like a network. And the nodal point of these ley lines is where there's a very high concentration of the cosmic energy.
Hmm.
And so what we had was these ancient structures were placed in those places so that it could draw the maximum energy from the cosmos. Also, recently, through a satellite, NASA has studied what we call as the Nazca lines. This is a line in which the sun travels during all the seasons so that there is a maximum exposure of these areas to sunlight. And so what happens is you see that especially Peru, Egypt, and some parts of India, China are all connected through these Nazca lines. So this is one more reference of placing the ancient architecture. But most important is the astronomy at that level, at that time,
Hmm.
was very high. So you had these people who could understand the astronomical position and their influence on the people as well as places. So we had these three references through which you will find that all the pyramids are interconnected.
Nice. So, Tata, does
Yeah,
the shape of the pyramid like have anything to do with it, or like what is the shape of the pyramid for? Why is it shaped like that?
yeah. See, you can have geometrically, you can have a three-sided, four-sided, five-sided pyramids. But
Hmm.
most pyramids are four-sided pyramids because it has got a specific purpose. This geometry is very useful for energy generated within the pyramid as well as outside. The four-sided pyramid is actually one half of the octatectahedron. It's an eight-sided figure. Half of it is below the ground and half of it is above the ground. There is also in Egypt, in the Giza plateau, there one more pyramid called the Sneferu pyramid, which has got a very odd shape. It has got a 53-degree incline and suddenly it bends to 48 degrees. And what they found is that the amount of energy inside the pyramid was very high when you have this bent shape. So this is one thing that's why we have these different shapes, especially the four-sided pyramid was very common.
Okay, so how and why like is the energy generated inside the pyramid and outside?
Very good question. Because this has been very recent research, because nearly 8,000 tons of stones are used in the construction of the pyramid.
Hmm.
And these stones have got basically two types of constituents. The first one we will discuss is about what we call hematite. This is an iron oxide crystal, and this material has got an octatetrahedron shape, the crystals. Remember, I told you the four-sided pyramid has got an octatetrahedron shape.
Yeah.
The crystals have the same shape. And also what we find is microhematite is found in the brain of the human beings.
Hmm.
So you can see the interconnection between all the three. So you have a
Yeah.
resonance so that there could be energy transfer from the pyramid through the crystals in the pyramid stones to the human beings. Also, you had another material called magnetite.
Hmm.
Magnetite is another iron oxide, is actually a ferric oxide. And what we find is this material is also found in granite, which was also used in the pyramids. And also, this material is found in the tissues of the brain, human brain,
Magnetite.
magnetite. So
Nice.
you see these two material play a very important part as to why they were used there and how they have an influence on our biology as well as on the energy levels. Yeah,
Nice. So how have they conducted any experiments to verify this?
yeah. Very recently in Siberia, in the Tomsk region, two scientists have conducted and constructed pyramids and tried to measure the energy field. One is Dr. Valery Uvarov, other one is Dr. Konstantin Karetkov. These two people,
Hmm.
one is a geologist, other one is a physicist, and they have combined together. They have done a lot of experiments, both inside the pyramid and outside the pyramid they have constructed. They constructed these pyramids only with concrete, but they laced it with certain crystals, like this hematite and magnetite. Also, the headstone, which is on top of the pyramid, they used a special crystal so that it could draw the maximum energy. And what they found was the energy level inside the pyramid, the four-sided pyramid, was not that very high at the lower level as we ascend to the third and fourth level. Also, they found that the energy level outside the pyramid was very high. So this
Hmm.
goes to prove again what was the purpose of the Giza pyramid. I remember we talked about it when we were talking about Giza pyramid, that the
Yeah,
people
yeah.
people around the pyramid had a very healthy life. The vegetation was very good, which is again proved in the Siberian wilderness, where practically nothing grows. But they were being able to grow extremely high greenery in this particular part of the world. So these are things which have really been an eye opener of how these ancient people had such a fantastic idea and technology to harness the power of the cosmos. This is something which we have to learn today when we are especially burning up fuel and we are in a non-sustainable mode. It is very important that we have this knowledge and this particular technology taken into our own system and used.
Nice.
Good. I think it's been a very lovely chat with you, and we will continue on further topics relating to this area. I have also given two very important YouTube links from which
Hmm.
quite a lot of material can be understood, because what we are giving is a very brief summary of what we have come to know. So anyhow, thank you for watching and have a great life.
Thank you. Bye bye.